The trade deadline might be over, but that's not going to stop the Canucks and Penguins from continuing to talk about JT Miller. It's Begsy and it's Bhawan, and you're listening to Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, friend, and thanks for hitting the play button on today's episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, Canucks writer and part-time credentialed media member for Daily Hive Vancouver. And before we dive into today's show, we want to thank you for making Locked On Canucks your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, where the best way you can help us grow is to listen every day and subscribe. I'm joined by my co-host. Yeah, there he is. That's my co-host, my brother in pain, cheering for this team, Kyle Bhawan. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good, brother in pain, but I do hope we do spend a little bit more than a couple minutes on Quinn Hughes being the best Canucks defenseman of all time. And I don't know, just we got to spread some positivity, okay? It's been super negative over the last, 10 years, just that was a cool stat, and I can't wait to touch on that later on the show, real talk, because man, oh man, I need to start off the week with the vibes, yo. With the good vibes. For real. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, man, to be honest with you. I mean, life is a little boring right now after coming back from vacation, a lot of studying, and now I'm getting in the groove of this podcasting 5 days a week. But, I had some fun with my daughter. Yeah, always good on the weekend with the daughter. And I watched a great hockey game on the weekend, too, with the Canucks and the Leafs. And we will definitely talk about that later. But, first and foremost, I do want to touch, maybe for the last time this season, probably not, who knows. I want to touch on the JT Miller stuff because, our last episode was right after the trade deadline when obviously no deal transpired for JT Miller. But over the weekend, there was a number of reports about, what actually happened between the Canucks and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I kind of want to preface it by saying that not all deals happen at the trade deadline. Sometimes that's where deals are born, even if they don't happen. And Chris Pronger had a long thread on Twitter recently about the trade deadline. He basically said the same thing. When he left Anaheim in 2009, he knew he was being shopped at the deadline that year, but he didn't leave the team until the offseason. And I think we saw recently in Vancouver as well with the Oliver Ekman-Larsson deal. There was some smoke around that for a year plus until he actually became a Vancouver Canucks. So, even though everything doesn't happen on the deadline, that doesn't mean the deals are done. And it sounds like, the talks aren't done between the Vancouver Canucks and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So I want to touch on Elliot Friedman's report from the 32 Thoughts podcast. And he basically said that the two teams had discussions. And, even though Alvin told the media that there was never an offer made, there was no formal offer made. But that doesn't mean these two teams didn't have some pretty serious discussions about JT Miller becoming a Pittsburgh Penguin. And Elliot Friedman touched on the fact that this deal seemed complicated and that there might need to be a third team involved in order to either retain salary or add a young center to a deal. And he basically ended off by saying that this potential deal is definitely complicated, and which makes sense. It's hard to move money around, and JT Miller, from what I hear, is making a lot of money in the years ahead after this season. So maybe, Kyle, before we talk about it a bit more, I just want to say, is JT Miller going to be a Vancouver Canucks next season, or is he going to be a Pittsburgh Penguin?
Dude, he is, man. He's staying in Vancouver, bro. It's all smoke, bro. It's all smoke. Local kid going home. Dude, it's all BS. It's all BS. He's not going anywhere. That contract is not being moved. And the Canucks are still going to have one of the best forwards in the NHL on their roster next season. And his name is JT Miller. I know we hear the rumors and we've heard that Alvin declined picks after picks after picks. And he just wanted that top center prospect or that probably that center under 25 that could fill the role and possibly be the next JT Miller. But again, I don't know. I don't hear it. I hear this only being a thing because Vancouver's a hotbed of hockey and Pittsburgh's a hotbed of hockey and people are talking and they can put a couple pieces together, but I just don't see this happening at all. And I don't know, man. I don't really even believe in the rumors, to be honest. I really don't. And I said it, I think, on the first episode that Carolina would be a team that would be interested in a guy like JT Miller. And I did hear that Rick Dhaliwal said that one team did call on the deadline, and that team was Carolina. I think he said that on Sakaris and Price. Why would Pittsburgh do it? I don't know. But hey, did you hear? Did you hear the chants for fire Hextall at the Pittsburgh Penguins game? It was on
What?
the episode of 32 Thoughts. They kind of like plugged it in, but
Yeah.
that's crazy. Like, would they if that's what the fans are cheering? Is the owner and Lemieux gonna let Hextall make a trade to acquire a $56 million contract to put on the Bucks, even though the kid's from Pittsburgh? Like, I don't know. I don't think so, man. I don't think so, Trevor. I think the story's about to it's gonna be done, bro. We're not gonna hear much about it anymore.
Well, we'll see. I think we'll have a pretty clear sign of that if Hextall's still employed, if and when the Pittsburgh Penguins season ends. And, they're not even a lock to make the playoffs right now. They're still a wild card team. But if he does go into the offseason as their general manager, we've seen in Vancouver that a desperate GM can do dumb things, like
Okay,
trade a 9th overall pick
okay,
for Oliver Ekman-Larsson
okay.
and Connor Garland and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's, part of the reason I'm buying the fact that JT Miller could go to Pittsburgh is because Ron Hextall is desperate. You know, basically they are in a cup contention window because of the contracts they signed for Evgeny Malkin and Christopher Letang. They still see a cup window this next few years before those guys start to really decline. And those guys are still pretty good players. And, they could probably use another impact forward like JT Miller. And if the Canucks reports are saying they're asking for 2 first-round picks, which, I think is going to be pretty hard to get. But, maybe there just have to be this 3-team trade. I still don't really buy into the fact that the Canucks have to get a young center and trade JT Miller and get draft picks all in the same deal. Like it honestly seems ludicrous that this all has to be done at once. But again, maybe this is why this makes more sense in the offseason when it's easier to talk to teams and there's more flexibility salary cap wise. I will say I was kind of thinking of big 3-team deals that have gone down. And, one of the last ones that popped in my head was the Philadelphia Vegas Golden Knights and Nashville deal when Ryan Ellis went to Philadelphia, Nolan Patrick went to the Vegas Golden Knights, and Cody Glass went to Nashville. And again, those are 2 younger centers with really, really high draft pedigrees who are struggling. And I just wonder if there's a player out there like that for the Canucks. Is there anyone that jumps to your mind in terms of maybe a young center the Canucks might target who hasn't worked out at their team right now?
No, not me. I don't really know. Dude, I'm just getting back into the world of things, bro. Like, I don't have that player in mind that could be in a trade for JT Miller. And I think it's because of my knowledge base, but also because of the improbability of this happening. Like, I'm just so over JT Miller leaving. But you did bring up a good point. You brought up a really good point how, we really had a GM in Jim Benning who did the impossible when it came to player acquisitions. And it is possible for other GMs to be on that wavelength too and be desperate and be a little dumb. And I think that's the only way something like this happens. Okay. Yo, we got to stop. Okay. For the 4th or 5th time, leave JT Miller alone. Okay. He's playing the best hockey of the year so far. I think there's still a lot of talent there. There's a lot of things that JT Miller can do that a lot of players can't do. I feel as if he's still a difference maker. Yes, he's far away from being a Selke winner. I almost swore there, but I just want to get past this love fest we have with this potential JT Miller leaving Vancouver thing and just kind of buy into what he can do for the team. And I know it's hard to do that because the Canucks just suck, but I'm looking for another narrative to follow right now. I'm not gonna
Well, hey, you know what? JT Miller played a pretty good game over the weekend.
lie.
So let's touch on that, man. It was probably one of the most fun moments of the Canucks season, with the Canucks beating the Toronto Maple Leafs. But before we have some fun talking about the Maple Leafs choking in Vancouver, I need to tell you, Kyle, about a product that I started using every day. I came back from my Bali vacation and I feel like I had that dad bod going on. But ever since I started taking Athletic Greens, I've begun to leave that post-vacation dad bod in the dust. So, what is that stuff in Athletic Greens? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, aging, all the things. Kyle, I usually get up at 4 a.m. to work on my Canucks rating,
Wow.
content, and prep for the show. And, I'm waking up early, man. And usually I start off with coffee. But now, before I start sipping on my coffee, I make sure I wake up with the delicious cup of Athletic Greens. It's an awesome way to start my early day. And I got to say, even though I feel like I've started to leave my vacation bod in the dust, that tropical flavor of Athletic Greens takes me back to those beaches of Bali. As a dad, I need my sleep, and Athletic Greens supports better sleep quality, recovery, mental clarity, and alertness. When you're using AG1, you're investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance product. And Athletic Greens has over 7,000 five-star reviews. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1 year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Wow. That was pretty good. That was pretty good, man. And I hope that you do drink a lot of Athletic Greens so you could just be around for a while. And that's the thing. If you're listening to this and you're a diehard Canucks fan, I know things are tough right now. One thing that you can control is being healthy. Now, health is wealth. We all know that. But health also gives us a better chance to live longer on this thing called planet Earth. And if we live longer on this thing called planet Earth, we have more of a chance to witness. Again, it may seem like the impossible, but we have more of a chance to watch the Canucks lift the Stanley Cup. That is the biggest reason why I want to get to the age of 104. So I just increase my chances of just doing that, because man, oh man, that would mean a lot to me. Could you imagine? Could you imagine being on your deathbed, right? I know it's sad to think about these things, but being on your deathbed, and for me personally, I feel like I'm risk taking right now. Okay, I've been chasing a dream for a long time, and I know these dreams are going to work out. So I'm going to be on that deathbed, and there's going to be a good chance I don't have a lot of regrets. But one of the big regrets I would have is not witnessing the Canucks win a Stanley Cup. That would be sad. That would be sad. A part of me would feel as if I didn't get the most out of life because the Canucks didn't lift the Stanley Cup. So drink
Yeah.
drink Athletic Greens, do it. Live on this earth for a long time, and increase your chances of witnessing the Canucks win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, there you go.
That should be the copy. That should be the copy, you know? I know we have to read from the script and tell the people these things and tell the people our experiences from the beverage, but it should just be that, yo. The Canucks are not doing it. Let's increase our chances. Let's live longer, and let's watch this team win a Stanley Cup. Live for a long time. Locked on.
Yeah, you know what? I have one story, and I'm sure you listen out there, you probably have a story like this too. But I used to work in a retirement home as a teenager, and there was this one lady in her 90s, just one of my favorite human beings of all time, and she wanted nothing more than to see the Canucks win a Stanley Cup, and she passed away like 2 months after 2011. And I was just like, oh. It's
I gotta go
at
there,
the end of the
man.
day, you can't worry about things in life you can't control, and you and I can't control the Canucks win a Stanley Cup unless as we get going here on Locked On Canucks, maybe Alvin's tuning in, he's listening to our ideas about this team, and maybe he's not screwing up like he did last week with Philip Hronek. So
Dude,
that is the dream, bud. But other than that, you can't control it, so don't worry about it.
You went super dark there, man. I just brought up like this vision, but you just brought in facts, and that's dark, bro, because there's a 74-year-old watching this right now, right?
Of course,
Whatever,
man. Of
continue,
course.
man. I'll go there, man. This is dark, bro. Leafs,
I'm just saying it's the truth, man. You can't control some things, but I do think about that. I know you listen out there, you think about that person too, that older Canuck fan in your life who's got to see a cup, hopefully in their lifetime. This weekend wasn't quite a Stanley Cup victory, even though Rick Tocchet wanted to call it a playoff game. But it was arguably the best moment of this Canucks season, between Tyler Myers absolutely flattening John Tavares in the opening minute, to JT Miller and Pettersson scoring 2 shorthanded goals in the same kill in 44 seconds. Yeah, Saturday was a lot of fun, man. I don't know if I've felt those good vibes for the Canucks this season as much as I did on Saturday night.
Yeah, I feel as if I saw a lot of that rhetoric online and through the people and through the Canuck fans. It was a nice moment. It was a break from the tank, and It's always a good time to beat the Maple Leafs. And Begsy, you and I have talked about it a lot of times. Now we're talking on Locked On Canucks. I got to let the listeners know, I don't hate the Maple Leafs. I don't hate the Maple Leafs, okay? Starting off this thing being a Canucks fan way back in 2002, dude, the Leafs were kind of, I mean, they were there. Darcy Tucker, Matt Sundin, Nick Antropov. They had their guys. They're doing their things. They're still making the playoffs, but they weren't ever, to me, like an intimidating team. I didn't have a reason to hate them. And then when the Canucks were like really good, the Leafs just sucked and they weren't relevant. So I never had that hatred for them. But I did hear someone say, I don't know who it was, but someone talked about how there's not a team in the league the Canucks hate more right now than the Leafs. And is that because there's no rivals like Chicago and Boston? There's no competitive nature within those rivals. We just have to go back to the past and back to geography and pick the Leafs.
I'm gonna tell you right now, man. I do hate the Leafs, and it's for a couple of reasons. One, hating teams is fun. Okay, like I think sports isn't as fun. You're not as invested if you don't hate a few teams or hate a few players. And I tell anyone who will listen that I cheer for every team across Canada except for the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Edmonton Oilers, and the Calgary Flames. Those teams can all crash and burn. And with the Leafs specifically, Edmonton and Calgary are Canuck rivals. You can't cheer for those teams, okay?
Yeah.
But for the Leafs, it's just that Eastern bias. You grow up all the time, and it's Leafs talk 24/7 on Sportsnet and on TSN. And I'm tired of it, man. Especially like back in the day when the Canucks were good and the Leafs sucked, and you just got Leafs talk on TV all the time. Like that drove me nuts. And it's going to be ingrained in my brain forever. I won't forget it. I also like good guy Pettersson. Just a humble dude. And then you got Austin Matthews with his mooning incident. It's just like, come on, man. I'm not cheering for the Leafs. I hope they have another first round defeat. And yeah, come at me. I will say too, during my time at Nucks Misconduct, whenever I wrote something bad about the Leafs, again, I was writing for Canucks blog. Like this here is a Canucks podcast. But every time I say or write anything bad about the Leafs, I get like Leafs fans hitting me up, like finding my email address and hitting me up. So you guys are a bunch of dedicated dudes, and I appreciate the dedication. But yeah, I hope your team loses. I got no love for the Leafs, and I had a lot of fun watching them choke it away against the Canucks on Saturday night, especially with the two shorthanded goals. It's a tie game, and Miller and Pettersson go and do that. Like that was special stuff, man. And Miller in particular has been rolling lately. I know we talked about him off the top here in terms of all the trade rumor stuff, but he's arguably playing some of his best hockey of the season right now. I mean, he's got 5 shorthanded points in his last 15 games.
That's nuts.
Like of all his stats, I was kind of looking at it. That's what really stood out to me recently. This guy, again, he's the first guy over the board on the PK right now. I know that's probably not the plan long term based on what Talkett was saying when he came in. But yeah, Miller, I would say this is his best stretch of hockey of the season right now.
Yeah. What are the chances? Do you think Miller ends this season off point per game player? I know he's maybe like 5 points, 4 points away from being a point per game player. But again, he's playing some of the best hockey of the season. He is that guy. He's an offensive. He's like a tier B offensive juggernaut. He can go on stretches, bro. He can go on stretches. So I do hope he gets there because I kind of want the narrative to change. Real talk. Leave JT alone. He's part of this team for a long time, and let's just make the most of it, man. That 1-2 punch, right? Pettersson and JT. It was ironic, the first game after the deadline, right? Was it the first game after the deadline? It was. That JT Miller and Pettersson do that, and like, there's a good chance, and I hope this is true, that those two are the 1-2 punch for the next handful of years. Real talk, man. We need Pettersson to sign long term, and if that's the case, it's Miller, it's Pettersson. Straight up.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it was again. There's so much drama going around this team this season, and people are obviously Pettersson was asked about JT and his relationship with JT on After Hours, and I don't know. People do want to create probably more drama than there actually is in that dressing room. And again, we're not in the dressing room; we don't fully know. But it was pretty nice to see them celebrate like that after scoring a huge goal against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I say huge, relatively speaking, because the Canucks are out of the playoffs. So how much does it really matter? But it was a fun night of hockey, man. And sports is entertainment after all. That's all you can ask for is some fun hockey, man.
I gotta bring something up too, man. Even though I know I've been pumping up JT Miller's tires ever since we started the show 4 shows ago, but I saw something on, I think it was Tim and Friends, and I think Keith Yandel was on the show, and he was asked a question regarding who's going to be the next captain of the Vancouver Canucks, and he said JT Miller, basically because they're homies and Miller's a good player, blah, blah, blah. But come on, man. Watch Canucks hockey. There's not a player more deserving than Elias Pettersson, for real.
Yeah.
Because Pettersson's in rare territory. He really is. He's the most skilled player on the team, the most talented player on the team, and he's the hardest working player on the team. Shift in and shift out. And he's been doing that since he got here, for real. He's got tenacity to him. He never takes a shift off. And if only the East watched more Canucks game. Now, why would they? I get it. Late start and the team sucks, but that's bogus, man. Like JT Miller's not going to be the next captain of the Vancouver Canucks.
Can you imagine the PR nightmare in this market if they named JT Miller captain?
There's no chance. You just want Pettersson being that guy because he sets the example. He sets the example. Again, when I say he's in rare territory, I don't know. Like, you watch more hockey than me. There's probably a couple of these players out there, but again, he's the most talented player on the team. He puts up the biggest numbers. Well, she's starting to do that now, and he's arguably the hardest worker too on the whole team. He works harder than a third line grinder, like a fourth line grinder. He's in every shift, and I don't know. There's not a lot of players out there like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably some pros and cons naming Pettersson captain, and I even had some hesitation watching him on After Hours a couple weeks back, but I think let's table that for an episode down the road because the Canucks are naming a captain, anytime by the end of the season. So I think we have time to talk about that one. I do want to end the show talking about our one good thing segment, and it's really one more good thing because Saturday night was good. It was a lot of fun. And Quinn Hughes, surprise, is the target of our one more good thing segment. But before we do that, Kyle, I already talked about how I'm feeling healthier since I was, eating and drinking like a degenerate during my Bali vacation. But since I came home, I'm feeling better, and I have to give some credit to me feeling better to Built Bar. If you're like me and you want to eat healthier, but you don't want to compromise that great tasting stuff, then man, I got something for you. You got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, Built is so delicious, you won't think that is good for you. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they are covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
And they come in unbelievably good flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better than that is that they are healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. You can order your favorite flavor of Built bars today on Built.com.
Wow. Again, it's Monday, it's Monday. The ad reads are a little slow today, but it's episode number 4, so you're episode number 5 or 4. Anyways, you're getting there though, man. You're getting there. And
yeah,
I can tell you love those Built bars.
I guess like day 5 on the job, right? Because we did 4 episodes in 3 days last week. I'm starting on Wednesday. Wow. Had that bonus episode breaking the Hronik trade, and this is our first full week at Locked On Canucks. So it's an exciting time for you and me, man. That's for sure.
Gotta let.
It's actually hard to believe that there's actually a quarter of the season left. There's still the Canucks have 25% of their season left. I know it doesn't feel like that, but there's quite a few games to go, man. And I think there's some reason to be concerned about the tank, but we're not going to talk about that today because I want to end the show talking about Quinn Hughes setting the record for being the fastest defenseman to get to 200 assists, doing it in 263 games. And you look at some of the players ahead of them. It's pretty much a list of Hall of Famers, right? Brian Lee, Bobby Orr, Gary Suter, Sergei Zubov, Paul Coffey, Albert Kinnis, Dennis Potvin. You're talking about Cup winners and Hall of Famers there. I mean, it's definitely an impressive list. And, we talked about it time and time again in this market. I remember, back when we were doing the old shows over at Nucks Misconduct there, you said when Quinn Hughes was a rookie that he was the best defenseman in Canucks history. And you got a lot of blowback for that. But what do you got to say to those people now, Kyle? What do you got to say to them now?
Okay, well, I got to say this. All right. I said that after his first maybe 2 games being a Canucks.
Yeah, it was like a week into his first full season, I think.
Yeah, a week into the first. I was like, dude, this guy's already done it. I think he had maybe 7 points in 5 games or something. And I was like, dude, this guy's the best Canucks defenseman of all time because we've never seen anything like him. And bro, we're younger Canuck fans, I guess you could say, because there was 30 years of history before we got there. We barely hear any of these radio hosts or journalists talk about Canucks defensemen other than Matthias Ohlund. Sometimes they talk about Who I'm trying to even
Yeah,
think
like
of names
Yurke
right now.
Lume, Harold
Ricky
Snep.
Lume and Harold Snaps and like Jeff Brown or something. I don't even know. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
And Alex
yeah.
Edler, Kevin B. You barely hear it, like because even though when you hear those names, the host and journalists aren't even able to go more than 5 minutes, gassing this guy up because they're just like another top four defenseman. You know what I'm saying? For real, for real. I think Matthias Olin could have been more if those teams won more. You know what I'm saying? If the West Coast Express era, if they won, he would be more celebrated. Maybe if he stuck around or was healthy or not old around the 2011 era, blah, blah, blah. But this is about Quinn Hughes, and he's just that guy. And I'm just super impressed that he's been able to he's had like ups and downs with his defensive play through the first couple of years of his career, but I feel as if he's gotten a lot better at that side of his game over the last 100 games. Real talk. He's just making that step, and he's been able to still put up points on a really bad hockey team, and that's just overly impressive. And I heard a lot of things from other people in the hockey world regarding how underrated Quinn Hughes is. And I'm like, yo, what the? You guys are just not watching. It's not that he's underrated. He's underwatched. That's just the
Well,
truth.
yeah.
Like, what do you, dude? There's not, bro. You watch. I feel as if after every Canucks game, most Canucks games, he's not the perfect player, but dude, he's pretty freaking close. Like we're marveled, or just asking ourselves, like, dude, this guy is he just makes the game look so easy. He plays on a different pace, and he's pretty much doing that every game. I mean, I feel as if he's valued here for real. For real, he's underpaid too. He's actually probably him and Demko are the only two players in the long run that are going to have those contracts where the Canucks aren't going to be like paying a player out of value or overpaying a player that's going to be significant to this roster. Like, those two players, especially Quinn Hughes, is just Benning. That was Benning's best move, drafting him and signing him to that extension. Real talk.
He stumbled into that one. He probably tripped over his feet walking up to the podium when Quinn Hughes was still sitting there. I mean,
Yeah.
that draft is a bit of a disaster, but
Yeah.
again, I think something else maybe for an off-season episode was
Remember
just
all that pushback I was getting, bro? When I was saying that, bro, people are coming on my show and telling me, yo, what
and
are you
it's
talking
funny
about? Alex
too.
Adler, Ed Jovanovski, Kevin
Yeah,
BX. I'm like, what are you guys talking about?
yeah,
What are
and I
you guys
think the
talking
only
about?
the
Those
only
players were
argument,
carried by first lines. They were carried by first lines. They were carried by the West Coast Express, right? The Jovanovskis, the Olins. Bro, for real, the best line in hockey was carrying that team. And then when BX and Hamuse and Edler and blah, 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 consistent players, don't get me wrong, but they were playing on a team that had a deep team and also great goaltending and also the best line in hockey at one point. For real. Quinn Hughes is doing this on one of the worst teams in the NHL. And he's getting better. He's getting better. He's
yeah,
crazy, man. What a career, dude. What a
yeah.
career.
I mean,
What a game.
the only thing against your argument was the fact that he was a rookie, and I saw what people were saying, like, you gotta, I guess, put in some time before you're called the best defenseman in franchise history, but. If you've been watching the team for 50 years and you're realistic, that Quinn Hughes is the best defenseman in franchise history. Like, never mind the numbers and the records. He's going to break them all anyways. But ever since he came to the city, and I never argued with you at the time, I completely agreed with your take that, from the time he stepped on the ice in the Canucks sweater, he was the best defenseman in Canucks history. I want to throw out one more Quinn Hughes stat before we wrap up this episode of Locked On Canucks. So the Canucks at even strength this year with Quinn Hughes on the ice have scored 65 goals and have 48 goals against. So there's a plus 17 goal differential when Quinn Hughes is on the ice. Without Quinn Hughes on the ice at even strength, the team has scored 67 goals. So only two more than when Quinn Hughes is on the ice, and have 108 goals against for a goal differential of minus 41. So goal differential of plus 17 with Quinn Hughes on the ice, even strength, minus 41 without Quinn Hughes on the ice. That minus 41 goal differential would be fourth worst in the NHL behind the Anaheim Ducks, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Chicago Blackhawks. So, yeah, that's impressive stuff, man. And not only does it show how good Quinn Hughes is, but how bad this team is when he's not on the ice. It's a bit of the Edmonton Oilers Connor McDavid effect right here for sure.
100%. I want the viewers of this to comment below. Is he the only number one defenseman the Canucks have ever had in their 50 plus years of being alive in this league? Because I guess people again may say Ed Jovanovski, they may say Olin and Edler, but those guys at best are like tier C number one defenseman, and that's like saying way too much to describe a number one defenseman. You know what I'm saying? Again, if you just look at the stats, look at the facts, look at the clips, Quinn Hughes, and it's crazy how that's the truth. I mean, I don't know how the hell that happened. You're in a Canadian market and it took that long to find one guy who could arguably be a number one go-to guy. And yeah, it's I want to see this. You know what, bro? Like, there's so much time ahead of us, and he's still a long ways away from being like the number one, number two, number three defenseman in the league, because the league is stacked. But I do want to see this guy play some meaningful games so he can kind of get the attention he deserves to even be in that conversation. Because again, people are saying he's underrated. It's like, dude, he's just underwatched. He's just underwatched. Same thing with Pettersson. He's underwatched. You have to be an idiot to think that like JT Miller is the choice to be the captain of this team. For real. And just, yeah. Anyways, just watch Pettersson and watch Quinn Hughes. Isn't there a way to do that? You don't have to watch like the full Canucks games. You can just tap it and maybe like pay $50 a month to just follow like a player shift or something like that.
Sportsnet's got something like that going on, I think, but I don't know a whole lot about it because that's beyond my pay grade, man. That's beyond my pay grade. Watch Pettersson, watch Hughes, and make sure you watch us here at Locked On Canucks, or listen. We're okay with that too. But we want to thank you for making Locked On Canucks your first listen every day. Now make your second listen of the day, game to game, Locked On NHL. Every moment, every performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across Locked On NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on Audacity, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. There you go. The Canucks do play games tonight, Canucks and Predators in Vancouver. Kyle and I will probably talk about that. Let's see how the game goes. We'll probably talk about that on the next episode of Locked On Canucks. Kyle, always good to see you, buddy. And thanks again for listening to this episode of Locked On Canucks.
Shout out Trevor Lennon. Peace.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.